Jeremy Corbyn's Islington North constituency Labour Party has backed Sir Keir Starmer in the leadership race to succeed him. The decision is seen as surprising, given Shadow Business Secretary Rebecca Long-Bailey was widely regarded as the candidate most closely aligned to Mr Corbyn's policy views. Well, to discuss that and this weekend's other political stories, I'm joined from our Westminster studio by Tom Harwood, senior reporter for the political news website, Guido Fawkes, and Grace Blakeley, staff writer at the Socialist magazine Tribune. Thanks both for being with us. Tom, perhaps we can start with you. Rebecca Long-Bailey's bid then to become the next Labour leader. It's had a severe blow, hasn't it, after Jeremy Corbyn's local constituency party endorsed Sir Keir Starmer. What do you make of it?
That's certainly true. Rebecca Long-Bailey has not ignited that same passion behind her campaign that Jeremy Corbyn was able to do. And I think there are a couple of reasons behind that. Firstly, back in 2015, when Jeremy Corbyn was running to be leader of the Labour Party, he was set apart from all the other candidates in terms of his stance on public spending, on nationalisation, on austerity. He was offering a very different policy agenda from the other three candidates at the time. Whereas this time round, all of the candidates are basically saying the same thing on the economy, that the manifesto was great last time round, but it was packaged in the wrong way, and that they think they're the person to sell it better. So there's not a lot of space ideologically between the candidates now, and that's probably why someone like Keir Starmer is doing a lot better. He's someone who is just as socialist as Jeremy Corbyn, but he can package it in a perhaps more professional way. He's much more in with the media elite, say, in London. He's a former QC, he's been knighted, he wears a suit properly, all these things. He'll probably even sing the national anthem. Now, that will be the different sort of packaging to what really is the same Corbynite agenda.
Grace, what do you make of that? The same policies packaged in a different way?
Well, I'm not sure about Tom's reading that Sir Keir Starmer is just as socialist as Jeremy Corbyn. But, you know, there is a good point there, which is that the big difference, I think, between someone like Keir's leadership bid and someone like Rebecca's is that Keir is seen as more electable. And I think that's partly to do with, as Tom was saying, the fact that he goes around wearing a suit, looks very kind of suave and is kind of in with the London elite. But I think it also has to do with the fact that he is a man, which, you know, in a field that was crowded with women, it would be a real shame if Labour gave up this opportunity to have a female leader. I think the other thing that we really have to take into account here is that Starmer remains very popular in London, in the big cities, the places that Labour did relatively well because of the massive role he played in developing Labour's second referendum position. He's obviously an ardent Remainer, kind of hero for Remainers, whereas someone like Rebecca or even Lisa Nandy, they were both much more critical of Labour's Brexit policy. And obviously that had a significant role in leading to all those seats that were lost in the Midlands and the North in Leave voting constituencies. So I think really, you know, if we want to win those seats back, Sir Keir Starmer is probably not going to be the person to appeal to working class Leave voters in places like Blyth.
And Tom, what about the other contenders? How are they faring?
Well, really, we're seeing three top contenders. Keir Starmer's miles ahead, followed by Rebecca Long-Bailey, who's got about half as many constituency Labour Party nominations as Sir Keir. But then there's also Lisa Nandy, who's quite an interesting candidate because she's really pitching as the most sort of in touch with the working class roots of the party. That being said, she's someone who's seen as more sympathetic to Brexit, despite the fact that she continued to try to block it within Parliament. And then there's Emily Thornberry, who it looks like by next week will not make it onto the ballot. She needs 33 nominations from constituency Labour parties, and she's trailing behind there, so it's unlikely she'll make it on. It's interesting to see from the wide range of candidates that were initially putting themselves forward for the role. Many women, for example, like Jess Phillips. There are now really just three, and it just so happens that a knighted lawyer from central London is leading the pack. I'm not sure that is exactly the formula that's going to win back that red wall that crumbled in the election.
And Grace, let me get your thoughts on Lisa Nandy, because she has impressed of late, hasn't she?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Tom's point, shocking there, I don't actually disagree with some of what Tom said there. I think Lisa has really built on the reputation she gained before the general election for actually being one of the few MPs that was really trying to resist the Remain drift of the Labour Party. And she's obviously made quite a name for herself talking about the plight of Britain's towns, talking about the north-south divide, regional inequality, all of these issues that are actually really very important, both for the British economy and also in terms of Labour's electoral strategy. Having said that, what she hasn't done is really articulate a massive policy agenda in the same way that, say, Rebecca has done. She hasn't really put much kind of flesh on the bones of her leadership race, really, in terms of policy or in terms of kind of plans for her leadership of the party. In contrast, you know, Rebecca Long-Bailey has this case for aspirational socialism, which is to say she wants to kind of develop some of the policies that were popular, particularly things like the Green New Deal that she was quite central in developing, but kind of repackage that away from what it perhaps looked like to some voters, which was a kind of wish list of policies, and towards something that really speaks more to people's lives, to their aspirations, to their desire for a better life for themselves and their children. And she also, critically, one thing that really differentiates her from the rest of the pack is this commitment to kind of democratising the structures of the Labour Party and bringing that forward to actually democratising the British state. You know, that call to take back control that resonated with so many people up and down the country was just as much about there being completely kind of blocked out of a political process that is very centred in London and quite elitist, to be honest, as it was about the European Union. I think really Rebecca is the only candidate that has any answers to that issue.
And Tom, we haven't got long left. I just wanted to touch on the reshuffle that we think is coming this week. Any thoughts?
Well, it was initially touted to be a sweeping reshuffle with many. It was termed the potential Valentine's Day massacre. It now looks like it will be a lot less sweeping than that, despite some jokes that particularly Chief Strategist Dominic Cummings said to Spads in the last week. It's unlikely that this will be a sweeping change. There are many people who've impressed of late who were initially seen to be going out the door but are not likely to go now. This is likely to be a very similar sort of cabinet to what was appointed in the summer, and that will placate a lot of anxious Tory base people because they think that this cabinet is a very, very strong cabinet. And whilst there might be some changes around the edges, the central theme and the top players will likely remain the same, and we're expecting it at the end of next week.
Always good to speak to you both. Thank you very much, Grace Blakeley, Tom Harwood. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I just want to bring you some breaking news.